everyone. Welcome back to liquid pouring. This is module 4 and the final module in my series. First, I want to quickly thank all of you for being in my program and being my students. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to help me with my school project. Second, I've included a piece of canvas with edges in your kit. If you will use that for your final project, once you do this module today, I'm going to ask you to do a project to show what you've learned. So you get to use any technique, any things that you've learned, and if you'll just give me a little, whether it's written or just verbal, what you learned with these modules, I'd appreciate it, because the whole point for my project was to teach something. In module 4, you're going to learn a new technique called a string pull. And in a string pull, you use either string or you can use yarn, and there's other things that people use, but for our purposes, we're going to stick with string or yarn. I have used yarn, and if I can find the end to it, I don't see the end, but it's yarn like this. I just used a piece of yarn I had around in the house for my string pulls. You can use string as well. I used pieces that were about 2 feet long. I wouldn't make them much longer than that because it'll get messy. If you make them too short, you'll see in the tutorial that my first piece is a little short. Nevertheless, about 2 feet would be about accurate for this piece of canvas. It is a little messy with this technique. You're going to be dipping the yarn into some paint and saturating the yarn with paint. I suggest using another container. I used one like this. If you don't have an extra one of these, then use some kind of small container and put paint in it that you're not going to be using for a pour, because the little strands, fibers from the yarn are going to get into the paint, and then if you use it on a pour, you're going to have pieces of fiber in your pour. Okay? So anyways, I hope you enjoyed the technique. I hope you've enjoyed this series, and go ahead and let's paint. So on this next technique, you're going to need a background for your string pull. So I'm going to just do a quick flip cup technique. Okay, so now I finished doing a flip cup. I've spread it out, have some cells going. You don't have to use a flip cup technique. You can use a puddle. You can just do what's called a dirty pour. Pour a color, maybe like a strip, each one tilt it a little bit so they sort of come together. Doesn't make any difference, but you got to have some wet paint on the background before you put your string on the canvas. Otherwise, it doesn't really work correctly. Next thing you're going to do is you need some kind of string, yarn, something like that. I'm using yarn. They call it a string pull method, and I've seen thinner things than this used, but this is the only thing I have used. You need some paint. I put it in a container like this because what we're going to do is drop the yarn or the string into the paint and saturate it. Okay, so we'll go ahead. This is a messy technique, by the way. This is probably the messiest one of all of them. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this in here. The blue has a little bit of silicone in it. That's whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to. Okay. Now, This is the messy part. The string is not long enough. I needed it to come all the way down here, but it's okay. You've got to let it sit here for a little bit and let the blue mix in with the background. Okay. I paused the camera for a moment, so the time lapse has been a little bit longer than what you're seeing. Another. It's basically all you do. You drop a string of yarn in a color, you saturate it, you put it on your wet paint, you wait a minute or so, and then you pull it off. Taking just a little bit of excess off as I pull the string out. This one I can lay down for a minute because I made it the right length. I can make one more while I'm waiting. This one's going to be long enough. We'll do this one real quick. This is basically the technique. I've also seen if you don't have enough paint on your string and it's on the canvas already, you can take a little and dip like this and it's fine. You don't have enough paint for this. Let's try that. It's okay, just let it drip off this side. I'm going to pull this other one out now. Hints, tips. You got a lot of paint in the background and you won't see as much of your color. You see how much is being pulled off the end here. If it's drier or not as thick, you're going to see more of the blue. Just try different techniques. I like to use the silicone. See how the flowers have the little holes in them? That's because of the silicone and the blue. I like that look on the flowers. You don't want balls, or put any silicone in the color you're using for the yarn or the string. One more. Gotta give it a second. And then that'll be it, guys. This one doesn't want to do as much. Let's do this, like I said.